you can see on the bench here is a mess. This mess is a National Sewing Machine motor from National Sewing Machine Company of Belvidere, Illinois. I believe National also had a factory in Chicago, but it is one of the Illinois brands. This machine has apparently been sitting on the back shelf with a repair ticket at the shop I work at for a few years now, waiting for anyone to look at it and figure out whether it can be reassembled. So I picked through the box that it had, and the motor arrived in this shape. It appears to be complete. So we got our rotor and the end housing. Doesn't actually look bad aside from being dusty. It doesn't appear to be cut in any way. It's still got a few washers on the end of the shaft here, so I feel like it might have the balance or the spacing washers it needs. So aside from just being real dusty, I think this is going to come apart and go back together. But as you can see, the wire is real frayed. It's got these Chicago style plugs on it, and those are never easy to deal with when you're trying to get a machine back in order. So I'm going to see if I can get the coil to come out of this body here, and then if I can get the coil out and get fresh wire on this coil, then I'll be able to reassemble this, I think, because it's got the brushes in a bag and it seems to have the plugs for the brush holders. Sweet. And the nuts on these studs are 1/4 inch, so at least there's that. Right. I live near the freeway and they're doing work out there, and I can feel they must be driving something because there's a thump going out there. I don't know if that's coming through on the camera or not, but it's going to be a fun time if they have to keep driving piles and stuff for the freeway work. Alright, so those nuts are out, and now there's this guard for the coil, and the coil doesn't look fantastic, but I don't think it looks damaged, so with luck be able to get this housing to pop off of there. Yeah, I think this steel housing has to come out. Oh yeah. Right. Thought maybe the coil would slide down through there, but it did not. So, how are the brushes, and what is this felt that popped out of there for? It looks like the brushes are clipped on, so if I get skinny pliers, pull these clips off. There we go. All right, There's the end housing for that, to give that a good cleaning. And then here's the clips for those brushes. And I have to do some surgery to get new wire. Connected on here. Alright, I'm going to get a knife and carefully cut on here. Yeah, I'm going to get a knife and carefully cut this open. Like this old wiring, the insulation is good enough that if you don't disturb it, it's going to be fine. But if you tear around on it a bunch, then you'll end up with cracked insulation in here. So I'm trying to be delicate with these clips too. Yeah. So I'm going to find a knife and do some surgery to get new wire on here. So surgically and carefully removed the old wiring up to the coils. And I started on, this is the back side of the motor. And now I need to pull my wires back through. If you remember, I started on the brush side here, but I found the coil was on the other end here was the connections, so I was able to get the old wire all the way back to the coil and solder the new wire on, and I have insulator, and this is the blocking card. There's two of these that are slid in the motor to keep the wires from interfering with the rotor if things shift. So now that I have that in place, I'm going to hit the heat shrink tubing with a little bit of heat, but I'm not actually going to shrink it all the way because it doesn't need to. It just needs to insulate this part real quick, and then it's mostly going to provide some heat resistance as the motor runs. So I'm gonna hit the heat shrink tube and then put this back on. Yeah, and I didn't trim my heat shrink tube because I did want it to cover the whole inside of the body here. Alright, so a bit of heat shrink on there, and I'm gonna get our brush end here. Cleaned a little bit. Grab some Q-tips here. Just get our clips. Cleaned off, and then we'll get our clip space here cleared. since the end bell is off, we'll degrease inside the bearing cap here with some rubbing alcohol. This seems clean and dry, so definitely have to get plenty of fresh oil into it as we go here. But for now, we just need to have things kind of clean. Okay. And our motor bracket is to the bottom here. Our oil cup points up. Set our two clamping rods into the coil, and then give ourselves room to reach back in with our maybe this right angle tweezer is a better tool for this. That clip is securely on, and now we need to flip ourselves over and get our other clip in place. Of course, when they were assembling these motors, these wires were all much more flexible, and that insulation was a lot easier to move around, so didn't have to be near as... There we go. Okay, so you see the clips here, they face to the sides so that when you push, so they're up on the side here, so when we push our thing in, they don't turn toward the coil at all. Alright, so that is that. We'll put our clamping plate back in place, and this goes either direction, so we don't have to worry about that. And I didn't get any washers off of it, so we're hopefully in the clear with that. Oh, I know what I did not remember to put back on. I didn't put the grommet back on the wires here. Alright, well, we don't need a ton of room. Just need to take our new wire grommet, because this old grommet is very stiff. Might even have a metal insert in it, but get our rubber grommet on our body there. tighten these two nuts evenly. Pulling the body down. And the size of grommet I have, I thought was the same size as the one that came out of there, but it is not staying put. I have a slightly larger grommet. Yeah. I don't have a larger grommet, so just gonna have to make do with this one. Apparently being hard is what kept this grommet in place. But, alright. Then, let's clean our rotor off since we've got that out and have full access to it. The commutator here does not look bad at all. Use a dry Q-tip to dust the rest of the way around this. There. Alright. Oh, the commutator's not bad. Okay, let's so much filth from this motor on the bench that I need to grab a rag. Here we go. Fill that, or put a few drops of oil in that bottom bearing that we cleaned out. And then slip that in there. Feels like it's doing okay. And then this motor is held together with these caps, or these hollow nuts with the screw on the outside. So we just have to get them started before we seat the end cap in all the way. So if they're not started before we seat that cap, then they won't thread onto those long bolts. These are such a pain in the butt. I'm gonna take this one off because I can see the lower one better. Get the top one, so we can get the top one to start, and then okay, top one did start, and now yeah, so we have access to the lower one, and that way I can reach and try to, there we go, okay. Get that stud moved to barely line up there. And now tighten these evenly. Well, the motor turns. Hopefully it runs out this way, because you can hear it rubbing when it's pushed in. But okay. Well, here's hoping these brushes are the right ones. Oh. I forgot about this felt when I put this motor back together. Dang it. Alright. And that felt was on the deep inside, so I gotta pull this whole motor apart in order to get that back in there. So busy thinking about what order the parts might have to go in when I got this apart, or once I started assembling it, since it came as a, you know, there we go. That's that. That felt can go on as so. There we go. Wiggle it till it pops back in there. Now, the entertainment of getting these screw heads to catch these studs again. Although second time around, much easier. Okay, that's much better. Now, do these motor brushes. Wow, okay. Well, one of these motor brushes is brand new and the other one is old. round brushes, which is not fun. You know, it's nice when you have a square brush, because then when you've got them worn in, you can key them to the rotor so that they have nice and fit properly. Alright, one brush in, and then this brush is huge and long, and yep, that needs to get cut off and shaped. This brush is so long it doesn't even fit down in the tube. And then they have a non-standard spring with it. So let's start with very carefully there. Okay. Cracked all the way around. There we go. Get that to snap, and now we'll just square it back off. There we go. Square that back off. Drop it in. That spring has room, and then we can get this brush cap in. I don't know if I hit the thread with that. Let me. It's tough to go against the. Nope, that is not straight in there. Okay. There. Now I got it going straight, not over tighten it, and now my wire grommet is working back up into the motor body, which is definitely not what we want. So I guess we're just going to take that off of there and leave it, because I don't want it working up into the body there, but it doesn't want to stay in its spot, so we'll have to find a different grommet. And let me throw a plug on this and we'll see if it works. Okay, time to plug this in. All right, well, no luck. All right, we're gonna have to get out the meter and start checking stuff. So let's see now. First things first, any resistance across the plug. Nope. Alright. Well then. Time to get our brushes out and see if we have yeah, I think this coil is dead in here. So I should be able to get, there should be power from the each side of the motor to the coil.